So this is not another who's Xbox gonna buy video. This is based off of actual information that we have of the studios, of the publishers that we now know Xbox has had their eyes on for the past couple of years, which includes people like Sega and Square Enix. We're not gonna be listing out all the studios on this. If you'd like to see that, they'll be on screen maybe right here or later on in the video. What we are gonna be breaking down is between mobile, Asian markets, and talent, which of these studios would really cover all the bases that Xbox would need and then just cut dry. I'm not one of those people that wants them to just keep buying, but if they do get more based off of this list of people, which ones would round them out best? Let's go into first that Asian market territory, because that is a territory that they really need work on. They are super slow and small in areas like Japan and other foreign territories in Asia. So how do they do that? Their only like Japanese game developer is Tango Gameworks, who had a nice sort of appeal with Hi-Fi Rush, but we need more than that. And it looks like from these documents, Xbox was considering proposing to Microsoft, hey, can we get Sega, the people that make Sonic, Persona, Yakuza? This would cover them completely. It does scare me to get somebody as big as that, and Sega being just a fourth publisher potentially under Xbox, but they would be covered. But Sega said no. They said no for now, but they do have a great relationship with them, which is good for the future. The other one was Square Enix. Square Enix, the JRPG creator, the people that make Final Fantasy, the people that make one of my favorite franchises, Kingdom Hearts. It's been a while since we talked about Kingdom Hearts, and more, with an exceptional back catalog of games that would be great for the mobile ports too, which we're going to get into in a moment, that mobile is very important for the plan that Xbox has right now. So Square Enix is the choice. If it was between these two, I know a lot of people talk about Sega and how that does feel more appropriate for Xbox with the relationship they have, but just business is business, Square Enix would be the better pick. Because you got that catalog that is the most appealing catalog, I would argue, to the Japanese market especially, and that back catalog, you could port them for mobile and sell that in that mobile marketplace. Well, let's talk about that mobile market in a hot second. This video is brought to you by Patreon. If you want to support the channel, you can join our Discord at the lowest tier there and join me in some convos that we have every now and then. So check that site out and support the channel at the same time, get more from it. But Xbox needs to hit that mobile market. They have a plan for their mobile market right now that is the reason, honestly, they chose Activision Blizzard King. It's not because of just Call of Duty. It's not because of Diablo. It's because of King. If you look at their final list that they were deciding on, I think it's like 5 out of 8 of those final list people that they are considering are mainly on that list because of their mobile titles. That's what Xbox wants to do. They want to have that Google App Store. They want to have that Apple App Store. You know, they want to have their own marketplace that they could put on any device that people can choose from and sell games on. That's why they got King. So if they got a mobile person out of these 5 finalists, if you will, which of these guys would be the best? They only have one in-house, really a couple, okay? They have a couple in-house studios. They have Alpha Dog Games from Bethesda. That is their only mobile-focused developer that they have as of right now. If they get ABK, they'll have Solid State Studio managing COD Mobile, and they'll have King being the big one. You know, that'll be their big mobile person. But who can help King? Who can be alongside them if they want to grow their mobile even more? Niantic would be good. I see that on the list, being the people that created Pokemon Go. The reason I'm not too for it is because they had a massive amount of layoffs recently, and they had to cancel so many projects like NBA, Transformers, Marvel. You know, it could set them up to be a good acquisition because of how much they had to downscale, and it's like, oh, here we'll come to save you. But it just doesn't seem as promising of a both on a business side and a creative side as these other two, being Playrix. Is that how you say it? Playrix is another one on this list, being one of the biggest mobile game developers out there. You know, this is probably the part of the video that's like, I don't care about mobile. I don't either, believe me. But I do care about this plan of Xbox thriving, because if it thrives, then we get to keep having things like Game Pass, and they don't have to do any, like, they don't have to shut it all down. So Playrix is a good one because it's one of the biggest mobile game developers out there. Their revenue I think was like the second highest in 2021 out of everybody. And they have a wide variety of games that appeals more to the general market, maybe not to you and me, people that want, something on the level of like another Halo or something like that. They make much more, hey, your parents can play this kind of a thing. So if they just want to make money, Playrix would be a great one. They're comparable to King, I would say. And then there's the one that you and I would probably care about more, being Thunderful. Thunderful is a studio, publisher. They both have developer mobile for just games, and they have a lot of developers that they partner with to publish. So this would be kind of interesting, right? It sounds like, developer/publisher, kind of like Insomniac was for indie games. The thing about this one is that it's the most budget. Freaking Niantic and Playrix, they're listed for like over $8 billion, I think, whereas Thunderful I think it's like less than even $1 billion. And that's because they make mobile games, but they're much more mobile games for you and me instead of the general market. And therefore they don't sell as much. And there's other reasons for that too. So they're much more cheaper and they're going to make less, but they have the more gamer centric ones. If you and I want like a game, they recently published Planet of Lana. I would say though, just on the business level, I think Playrix is the one to pick here, because if they just want to, between Playrix and King, they will have plenty of mobile stuff covered to keep releasing to that mobile market and to make money off of that mobile market. So let's talk about the more exciting ones. It's been a long time since we had just a new studio join Xbox Game Studios. The only recent acquisitions we've gotten was publishing an entire publisher with its teams with Bethesda, and now with Activision Blizzard King as a whole branch, so the same thing. But there's another list here that we see a list of smaller studios. These are smaller studios. You look up their net worth on Google, you won't find anything. I think there's a couple you might find something, but all these studios would be in the millions to get. I think even less than 50 million to get. But which of these studios would they get? It shouldn't be somebody that does shooters or RPGs. And I say that because they got that ground covered. If there's any studio on this list that would join Xbox, I would want it to be one that does something that Xbox doesn't really have in their talent right now. And shooters and RPGs are covered. So I would say narrative-driven, a fighting studio to make fighting games, or platformer. I think those are the three areas that Xbox could really use. Narrative, fighter, platformer. Are any of these studios decent at that? Well, Ember Lab are the people that did Kena Bridge of Spirits. That was their first game ever. It was reviewed as a good game. Super small studio, I think like around 30 people. And they have a background in animation films, and they're all about, literally on their bio, compelling characters and cinematic worlds. Plus, they could make some really the cartoony looking things that I've been wanting, like putting my preferences aside. That would be really cool. That's a great narrative driven studio, as well as artistically technical innovation too, because they're great animators. But Moon Studios was also on this list. Now, Moon Studios, the people that made both Ori, The Blind Forest, and Will o' the Wisps, this is a studio that has history with Microsoft/Xbox. In fact, of all the people on this list, I would say they have the history, because literally Xbox kind of made this studio with their first two games being the Ori games, an IP that Xbox has. So they have the most history here. So this one makes the most sense. But the biggest reason I want to say this one out of everybody is the co-founder legit had enthusiasm of the idea of making Banjo-Kazooie 3. Now, I'm not saying that's an assured if they join, that means he's going to do it. But he literally points out, like, the first game was the best. Like, it's 2 sucked compared to 1, because I just want 3 to be a game focused on the game design instead of the scope and scale. We don't want to make it an open world. We just want to make some really cool levels, very much like Psychonauts 2 did. Like, that's what we want to do if we did it. And he just like kind of fantasized about it a bit. And I said earlier, they need a platformer studio. If you played the Ori games, yes, there's great platforming, but it flowed so well. So I think Moon Studios would be great. And the third one I just am going to mention is Striking Distance Studios, which is led by the creator of Dead Space. He also helped co-found Sledgehammer, who, that's COD, that's shooter, but I'm mostly bringing it up because the creator of Dead Space. He's leading a studio, big one too, biggest one on the list with 150 people. And I mainly bring him up because that would be another horror studio potentially. And that is something that Xbox doesn't really have right now, other than maybe Tango Gameworks. But it'd be cool to just have that, palette. But of these three, I would say personally Moon Studios. It's a toss-up between them and Ember Labs, but I think Moon, just because of that history and that enthusiasm to make a platformer. To me, those are the three that could make or break Xbox. I have one more point to say. For mobile, Playrix. For your Asian market, Square Enix, if that ever worked, hopefully I'm bummed to not see another JRPG studio on this list, or even publisher or whatever. There really wasn't anything besides Square Enix or Sega, but I think Square Enix would be the better pick, especially it sounds like they're more on the table for it with how much they're downscaling. And Moon Studios to add to your talent in studios. And then once you get those, just cut it off. Unless you find a fighting game studio, then just cut it off. That is great. If any of these would excite me most personally, just to see day and date, anything that this studio makes will be on Game Pass, which is the reason why these acquisitions can get exciting if you're an Xbox person. That's to me the main thing, is just anything that the studio makes going forward. If I'm a Game Pass person, I get to play it date and date. That's awesome, which is another video I want to make at some point about how that connects me more. I would say the 5 would be Hazelight Studios, the people that did It Takes Two. If I knew I never had to buy their games again, I could just play them day and date because I'm a Game Pass person. That put me through the moon. But the other ones, IO Interactive, people that did the Hitman trilogy, and just Hitman in general, I think. Square Enix, I mentioned before Square Enix, but I would be excited about that too because so many of their games are exclusive on PlayStation, which is my lesser preferred console. I'll do it if I have to and excited enough, but it'd just be cool to just say for the future going forward and their back catalog being added to the service. Oh, Moon Studios, I'd be excited only because of that Banjo-Kazooie potential. I would want that so bad. And Xbox tends to let these studios make the game they want to make, so... And finally, Ember Lab. Ember Lab and Moon Studios are probably the two I don't know. I brought them up as good picks, but I mutually am also personally excited about those two potentials. Of this list, which ones are you looking forward to most? The ones I was yeah, Team Cherry, but I have a feeling they really like being indie, and Sega, but they have a good thing going. Which one of these on the list would you want to see most? Let me know in the comments. And like I said, if you want more content, subscribe or upgrade to go on that Patreon tier and join our Discord where you can chat with me and the rest of the community.